Good morning, everyone. I am Joe Flick with the Montana State Library, and it is time today to talk a little bit about how our libraries and our local media here in Montana interact and maybe hopefully improve those interactions so information gets where it needs to be in a timely manner. So I have a little short presentation today, and then we'll get started with our panel. So I've kind of broken down my presentation down to 3 Ps. I really love alliteration, so I use it every chance I get. So my 3 Ps and my background is that I've done public information for a number of different not-for-profit organizations, and I also have kind of a short background in journalism. I worked for public television and was a reporter and a producer for several years in my past lives before I came to work in library land. So I'm kind of sharing with you a little bit about what I know. So this very brief overview is just the start. We know that librarians and news people have a lot in common because they both really love the First Amendment and they value intellectual freedom, and they're all about providing information. So we have a lot in common, and it's great to kind of have our 2 news people with us today to kind of share that and support each other. So get out some note paper or open up a document on your computer where you can capture any questions that come to mind as I go through my short introduction here, and then we'll spend most of our day with our panelists, or most of our hour, I would say, with our panelists, because they both agreed to come in today to answer your questions. So let's get started. These are my 3 Ps. You need a process, you should be promoting your events, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to pitch a story. So at your library, you should have a process, and this could be very, very simple. You could have just a designated spokesperson, and everyone in the library, volunteers, and all the staff know that that person is the person who answers the questions from the newspaper when the newspaper calls, so that they can get their information in a timely manner. Now, it might change. Your designated spokesperson, if you're at a bigger library, might change for each event, but if in doubt, of course, it should probably always be the library director. You do need a procedure for developing press releases and getting them reviewed and issued in a timely manner. What I'm sure our news people will probably tell you is it's nice to have advanced lead time when press releases come in, because they can put they're actually building papers and news out several days in advance. And then you always want to keep an updated contacts list for your press. So include social media posts so you know some places to put content, and keep in touch with your local press too. Take them out to lunch for a cup of coffee now and then, or invite them to something that's going on in the library that might not be necessarily work, but just an opportunity to stop by. It's really good to just get to know your local press folks. So if everybody knows how to get that press release written and done, and who's going to review it and who's going to send it out and where it goes to, that's really, really important. Really, really important to have a spokesperson that's designated in your organization, and really important to keep regular touch with local press. And then take the opportunity to promote all of your events. I think sometimes libraries are a little shy about what they think might be newsworthy and not newsworthy. And know that your news people will certainly they don't have to promote things or take a press release and print it. They're going to print the stuff that their readers want to know about, and that's their business. They know it. So go ahead and give them everything and let them decide. So public meetings obviously should be making sure that those are posted. Any and all of your programs, a kickoff day or an event like summer reading, or if you're doing a one book read event. And their promotion should always include a press release, invitations for interviews or stories, and background information, at least a press release. Let's see, I've got a question in the chat box I need. let me just make sure she knows. There's somebody who's not hearing. Is everybody else hearing okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I can, I can hear you.
great. It could be just a volume thing. And then I will give her one more piece of advice. Yeah, I hate that somebody can't hear, but that happens sometimes with our technology. So let's go on to one more thing on how to pitch stories. So interview ideas, contact information. What you really want to do is your events may not be the only thing at the library that's of interest to the press. It could be some of the strategies that you're implementing or your long range plan. And so those are going to be not necessarily a press release, but maybe a phone call to say, this is happening at the library. Maybe you'd be interested in doing a story on it. And the press will always be happy to let you know that's not something we're going to spend time on right now, but thanks for letting us know. And so it's not always a positive response. They have to make decisions about what's important and what they can manage with their limited resources. One thing I will mention about video and photos, images are always really valuable assets when you're putting together, especially with television but also with the print press. So it's helpful if you have something that's visually appealing to something that you like to look at. For instance, is something that they'll be interested in getting video or photos of. And it's really nice if you could have someone helping the press secure clearances for those photos. I know libraries have to be very careful about patron privacy, and you also want to let your patrons know if the press is going to be at an event so that they can avoid being in a photo that they don't want to be in. So that door will work, kind of swing both ways. And you definitely want to maybe, like I said, assign someone who can work with the press to help secure those clearances. So plan to meet up with some local press informally soon and have a cup of coffee, discuss what kinds of information, what things are happening in your community that you both have common interest in promoting and getting the word out on. And if you don't know what stories the press might like, just ask them. That's simple as that. Get a relationship. Now I have one more really important piece of advice for you this morning, and that is I hope you have a personal subscription to a newspaper. And I know your libraries have subscriptions to newspapers, but I'm really going to encourage you to pick at least one local newspaper and subscribe to it, because they need our support as well as we need theirs. And in a time when we're watching local newspapers kind of reduce staff and get smaller and sometimes even disappear, we all have a role to play as individuals in helping to support local news. So in addition to your library having a subscription, I hope you'll all take my advice today, and if you're not already subscribed, pick one and subscribe to it.
Thanks,
Yes.
Joanne.
You're welcome, says our newspaper editor. Beth Boyson's comment, and Beth is from Bozeman, it's so true about supporting local papers, Joe. Well, I decided I would get a little bit on my soapbox there, maybe even a little out of my lane as a state employee to suggest that. But I think it's such great advice that no one could argue really with it. So here are our terrific panel this morning, and I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then I'm looking for questions in the chat box or feel free to unmute your microphone and just jump in. Let's see. First, we have Gwen Florio, and Gwen is a journalist and a novelist. She has actually been nominated for Pulitzer. She's reported in conflict zones overseas and is now the executive editor at the Missoulian. And I hope you've read her novels, the Lola Wicks series. Absolutely spine-tingling suspense set in my neck of the woods, actually, so which always makes it
Thank
hard to
you.
read books late at night. Thanks, Gwen. And I just also read her recently published literary novel, but this is something you actually wrote a while ago, right? Silent Hearts, am I right on that?
Yeah, I started it a while ago and finally got it published much more recently.
So it's set in Kabul, and it's an absolutely stirring exploration of two differently strangled roles imposed on women in that place and time. It's a really great read for a book club, I think. I'm going to suggest it for book club next year. There's so much to discuss. And Mike Dennison has over 3 decades of journalism experience here in Montana and currently serves as the chief political reporter for the Montana Television Network. He recently published Inside Montana Politics, a reporter's view from the trenches about the trends that have shaped the political landscape in Montana. And another one that I'm recommending to my book club, but I haven't read it yet. And I know that a lot of you have had both of these authors in your libraries across the state and that they do travel. They are both on Humanities Montana lists. So if you are going to invite them, I encourage you to contact Humanities Montana and get them that way so that they can get their travel to and from your library covered. So that's my introduction. So I'm looking for questions in the chat box. And what do I have? A bunch of people saying good morning and what a nice picture it is. And let's see. Looking for some questions. Anyone? Mike, Gwen, do you have any other suggestions based on my short little introduction?
Well, I'll just tell you a couple things about dealing with TV. Of course, I was in print for many years, but now I'm a TV reporter and also write web stories. But I thought a lot of what Joanne said about interacting with the media was just spot on. And as far as developing those contacts and realizing about what you need for television and visuals. But I'll just add a few brief things to that. Um, Keep in mind when you're dealing with television stations, everything involving TV news takes more time than newspapers because they just have more things to deal with, cameras, etc., on-camera interviews, production. Therefore, give them as much lead time as you can. I mean, I don't think it's uh, a bad idea at all to call them like a month in advance of something that's going on to let them know about it. It just makes it easier for them to perhaps respond. And when you do contact a TV station, I think the person you want to contact is the news director. Um, or if you know a reporter who's covering your particular area, you can contact them directly, and you can find out what reporters to deal with, and so you can deal with them directly. And as Joanne said, there's a lot of times they may say no, but that's okay. They've got a lot of stuff to cover. Their staffs aren't that big, so it's okay to keep coming back, even when they may say no. Um, and she also mentioned about having someone, designated spokesperson. Um, it doesn't always have to be the same person, but if you're dealing with TV, they're going to want to talk to someone on camera. So you want to have someone who's comfortable doing that and someone who knows about the event and can answer the questions rather than saying, "Oh, I'll get back to you." You want to have someone who can be spontaneous. And also, those interviews would be they'd be fairly short. So you want to have someone who can answer questions about what's going on and keep it brief and keep it concise. And also, when we're covering an event or a speaker, um, as Joanne said, you want to make sure the people there are okay with being with being on TV and know a camera is going to be there and recording them. And also, You want to make sure your event has good sound, and you also want to make sure it's in a good setting with good light. That helps a lot, rather than some sort of deep, dark cavern. And those are just some things that TV reporters care about.
And I'm going to echo a lot of what Mike just said and what Joanne has already said. Including the fact that even for print journalism, visuals are surprisingly important, especially if you want a story as opposed to just a notice in the paper. We list a ton of library events in our paper as just short little notices, different groups that are meeting at the library, all the usual story times, that sort of thing. But when it comes to getting a story, your chances are helped immensely if you have something visual happening beyond a person standing up talking to other people. Let's see, Joanne showed me yesterday how to get my screen up on your screen.
I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to find you here. Okay. You should have a little invitation for us to see your screen.
Yeah, and this is one. It was just a little.
Just wait a second. We don't quickly.
Sorry. Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, it's not coming through.
It says you've been made the presenter.
You have to share. There's a.
Oh, how do I share? Show my screen. Oh, wait. Duh. Now maybe it'll come up.
Yes, now we have it.
All I had to do was follow directions.
That's what today is all about, following directions.
Right. So this was just a little feature about kids building castles for cats out of big cardboard boxes. But again, very visual. You know, you got cute kids, you got them building things. And that was on weekends especially, we're always looking for feature stories to cover that have those visual elements. And this one worked pretty well. And I think we found it just by going through the library listings that we get every week. So that's an example. What else? I made a couple notes while Mike was talking, and when he talked about having someone comfortable talking on camera or being interviewed, one thing that I suggest to people if they're not used to talking with the press but they know they're going to be interviewed is just jot down a couple bullet points ahead of time so you've got them fresh in your mind and you can make them quickly and concisely, and that takes a lot of the nervousness out of it. You know, you don't want to read them off, but again, have in your head what you want to talk about. I think that's about it off the top of my head.
Well, I have a question from our esteemed audience, and that is, actually comes from Bozeman, that they're planning candidate forums for this fall.
Oh, yeah.
Want your suggestions for what to put in the press room and the press kit to help prepare reporters. What would you like to see then in that press kit?
Since Mike's the political dude, go Mike, and then I'll jump in.
Mike?
And so this is a candidate forum at the library?
Yes.
And is it like people running for local office like county commission or is it a statewide office or what? Just kind of curious.
What is it? I'm asking Beth in Bozeman. Give her a chance to type in here. County, city.
Okay, yeah, local offices. Okay, yeah, I would think that the local press would very much be interested in that, and you want to send them out a notice that as far advanced as possible, telling them which candidates are going to be there, which offices we're talking about, what is the format, what time is going to be, obviously, and I also think that in organizing these candidate forums, what a lot of people do is they just have the people come there and just talk, and which I think is not terribly interesting sometimes, because it's just kind of like having people giving a serial press statement. You want to set something up so there's some sort of interchange between the candidates and between the audience. And so it's not just a forum, that there's some sort of debate element in it. In other words, that someone's asking them questions that are good questions, and if you like, you want to have a interchange between the candidates, have some sort of form of rebuttal. It really depends on how many candidates you have, how many offices you have. If you have a lot of people running for a lot of offices, then you may not be able to do that. But you want to set it up so you don't just have uh, a bunch of talking points that candidates are giving. You want to have some situation where they are challenged or where they're forced to answer some tougher questions.
That'll interest your reporters too, because they'll be interested in those kinds of information opportunities that might come up if you have a candidate forum where the candidates are just presenting themselves one person at a time, and there's no real question and answer period, or then that's not as much. I mean, that's kind of well-trodden ground and not likely to get as much press interest as an opportunity that something new is going to come up at your event. So there's a little follow-up here from Beth in Boyson. Is it helpful to have biographies of the candidates? Is that something you need? Do you need sponsor information? The time, do you need a place to interview a candidate in a separate room? Are those things that the press needs?
I'd say having biographies of the candidate is a really good idea. And as far as sponsorship of the debate or of the event, yes, that's good too. As far as having a separate facility to interview the candidates afterwards, you know, I think that might be a good offer, but I've never considered that essential, because when I go cover debate, I'm there to cover the debate and what's said, or the forum, what's said at the forum. I don't need more stuff afterwards. So I've never really found that useful. I think maybe some reporters feel differently, but I think the event itself should be adequate. And I'll give you an example of an event I went to recently that I thought was um, not terribly enlightening. And it was actually two people running for governor. It was at Carroll College, and they had them both standing there. It was Tim Fox and Al Olszewski, and they had a panel of people asking them questions, and they asked the questions of each candidate, and each candidate just gave an answer. And they had actually had the questions given to them in advance, which I didn't know until afterwards. And so here they are fielding questions, no back and forth, just kind of reciting what their positions are on these questions. And yeah, I just thought that was not terribly exciting from a reporting standpoint. So like I said, you want to have some interjection of some sort of conflict or some sort of challenge to the candidates. And I think it's also good if you let them know in advance, we're going to try to set this up so you have some tough things to answer. So you're not just there doing a press statement, essentially.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember when you're organizing these, and especially when you're choosing a moderator, the whole purpose of a candidate forum is to benefit the public. We're kind of your filters to the public for the people who can't make it there in person. So you want to think what's going to be most useful to voters. It's not, they can go online and read the candidate's literature, the candidate's own talking points. But what happens, when they get off message a little, that's much more informative. One thing about candidate forums that's important to remember is time of day you schedule them. Sometimes, people like to do these in the evening, which makes sense. So again, people can come, but if it creeps too late into the evening, it really screws up our deadline. And, you're sitting through an event that's an hour, a couple hours, and then you've got, maybe half an hour to write, which is really challenging in order to write a good and complete story. So, 6 in the evening, 3,000 times better than 8 in the evening.
I would agree.
That's a good point. And actually, for all events, the earlier in the day you can make that event, the better it'll be for the press, because that's more lead time. That's very helpful. Thank you, Beth. And for what it's worth, in my television days working for public television, I actually produced candidate forums, and I used to be very involved with League of Women Voters. They are a really great asset to if
Mhm.
you are planning to do a candidate forum. I would see if you have a League of Women Voters active in your community or nearby that you could work with, because they know, those women know how to do things. And and I'd also be happy to help libraries if they're planning candidate forums, because boy, I did a lot of them. Got yelled at by lots of candidates, so I think that meant I did a good job. So,
And I,
but
I
we
think we're
always,
covering one at our library this week. So,
yeah, I think that, Mike kind of alluded to this, if there's a question asked, ask it of each candidate, but then they have an opportunity to rebut. And providing questions ahead of time was never anything I felt any need to do. I did always provide the format to the candidates ahead of time, but we worked with the League of Women Voters to design that. We didn't work with the candidates to design it. So I think that you invite them. They can also not show up if they don't want to, and that says something to the public as well. So great. And
one thing Mike said that I wanted to underscore, because someone mentioned, do we mention who sponsored it? That is hugely important. If it's an interest group sponsoring a forum, that puts a whole different spin on things. And again, the public needs to know that. So it's just about letting people know where folks are coming from.
I'm looking for some more questions from our group here. Oh, here's Katie. Katie is from Kalispell, the Imagine If Library is up in Kalispell. And she, let's see, the question is, I have multiple media outlets with a wide array of deadlines and advance notice preferences ranging from, Great Falls.
Great pause.
Thanks very much. Sorry, I got that mixed up. Ranging from don't send me anything more than 3 days in advance to send it at least 10 days in advance. Does a happy medium exist? She wants to do all of her press on one day, or how many reminders can I send before I'm going to be a bore? She calls herself a bore. Yeah. So, and that's likely too. I mean, I even when I do press from East Glacier Park, which is my home turf, and I do press for a couple of organizations in town. There are only like 2 organizations in town, and I know that the radio station doesn't want it too far in advance, but the the a newspaper could really use a week or 2 advance notice. So what's your advice on that?
Well, boy, I want to know who says don't send me anything more than 3 days in advance. I can't even believe that someone would say that. But yeah, I think that I would not worry about sending things to people too often or too early. If they complain about that, well, I don't know. To me, that just seems like kind of a ridiculous complaint to be notified in advance of something to give you enough time to plan for it. You're going to complain about that. I don't understand that. So I think the earlier the better, and if it's the oftener is probably good too. I just there are a lot of times that people will send me something a long time in advance, and I'll say, oh gee, I guess maybe I'll think about that, maybe I won't. But there are also a lot of people who send me the notice, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and I may not even start thinking about it or noticing it until the third or fourth time. So yeah, I really don't. I would err on the side of overdoing it rather than underdoing it, no matter what the media outlets say, unless they're really vociferous about it. But I think you should be as active as you can be.
And I
Okay,
would
we have a
agree with that. I would say at least a couple weeks in advance, much farther out than that, and it runs the risk of falling out of my brain. So I would say a couple weeks in advance, ping again a week in advance, and then maybe 3 days please, please, please do not send anything a day in advance or the day of. Sometimes we get that. And frequently it's for events I wish we could have covered. But at that point, our day is already set. We don't have the resources to switch it up unless it's something huge. And we really hate that. Don't expect an answer. That's the one thing, unless we are interested. I get so many emails every day, but I'm pulling ones aside that catch my eye and save them. And if we are interested, we will get back in touch. But again, those reminders help. I'd rather have too much email than miss something that we want to cover. The other thing that's really important, if you're going to call or email, earlier in the day is better. Same with events. Earlier in the day is better. What I just can't stand is someone calling me at like 4:30 in the afternoon, which is when things are really starting to spin out of control in a newsroom, and they want to chat about something. And I'm like, no chatting. 10 in the morning, I'll chat. But after about 2:30 in the afternoon, if it's not urgent, that's a good time to avoid. In the morning, I can kind of go through everything and study it and start setting up the day and the week. But late in the day, it's too late.
Yeah, I would. The same goes for TV, especially for TV, because deadlines start cracking about in the mid-afternoon. But I also think it's a good idea to if you're sending emails to people, is to follow up with a telephone call if it's something you really care
Yeah.
about. I think that's. I mean, I find myself sometimes getting a bunch of emails, and then when finally someone calls me, I go, oh, well, I guess this is probably important, and I'll take a closer look at it.
And we've got a couple of other comments I want to read. And one is from Mallory. She says, I send all press releases out on Fridays with events weeks in advance so they can choose to use what they want when they need it. And they always know they're going to get stuff from me once a week. And I think that's fine. But in that case, you taking Mike up on his suggestion, you might want to call a few days in advance and just say, want to make sure that you got that press release because this really important thing is happening, or it's really visual, or we're expecting a really big turnout and people will be picking up the paper or looking in the news for it. So don't be shy about giving a little follow-up, because they can tell you, oh yeah, I saw that, but I'm not going to be able to cover it, and that's fine. I mean, your job is to put that information, give all those opportunities to the press, and their job is to pick and choose from those opportunities. So as long as you keep that in mind, you can throw out any number of opportunities and just know that they may or may not be able to pick up on them. And then another follow-up from Gail Bacon, she's from Belgrade. I think it's very effective to send a positive email or comment to our local news editor when they've done a great job on an article. Well,
thank you. We like those.
Well,
we get very few of them.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? While the comments are genuine, it also helps to foster a trusting relationship.
Yeah.
Yes. And I didn't really want to say this right out there, but the last thing you really want to be, the last position you want to be in is that the first day that you really get to meet all of the press in your community is a bad day because something happened at the library or near the library that was not positive. And now suddenly you're in the position of having to deal with a bunch of people that you don't know at a very stressful time. It's so much better if you've had built that relationship up over time.
One thing I do want to say when you're talking about positive emails, and boy, we sure like those, but if we get something wrong, please let us know right away so we can fix it. I've talked to people once in a while who would say, oh, a few months ago you did this thing and it wasn't right. And I'm like, oh my God, why didn't you tell us right away? Because they've been walking around mad at us, and probably with good reason. And we could have helped out. We don't want incorrect information in the newspaper. So that's really, we're not going to take it wrong. We'd rather fix it.
And here's another question from Beth down in Boisman. How might we approach that corrections conversation? How should that go?
either shoot us an email or call us. I've had people call 5 minutes after something's posted and said, "Whoops, you've got a bad typo in there," and we can fix it online right away. And we can, if it's made it into print, God forbid, then we put a correction in the paper the next day. But or just like I said, pick up the phone, shoot an email. If you shoot an email and we don't respond to that, make sure you do follow up with a call to make sure we've seen it, because sometimes we do miss stuff, and that's not something we want to miss.
Yeah, I would echo those comments of Gwen's that if there's something people see that is erroneous, just call us up, and especially for TV, I mean, we can fix it online immediately. Then and then we might, if it's online first, then we'll know about it before we actually produce the TV version, so we can make sure that's correct. And I can just speak for myself personally. Yeah, I've never gotten upset at someone for pointing out that I made a mistake. I'm happy to fix it. And so I know that sometimes some editors and reporters may not be as receptive to that, and that's one of those things that you just have to be ready for. But I think that it's perfectly within your rights and um, within professional courtesy to call someone up and say, this is incorrect. However, the calls that I get of that nature where I'm not receptive is where people call up and say, you should have written it this way, or you didn't emphasize that, or you didn't do that. And I'll go, well, I said, what was anything factually wrong in my story? And I go, well, no. And then I'll say, well, then I'm probably not going to change it. So I think that's kind of the dividing line I think a lot of reporters will draw.
You guys both mentioned professional courtesy, and that's essentially what's at play here. And if it is factually wrong, when I did television, I used to jokingly tell people, yeah, well, I don't exactly hide my mistakes, I broadcast them. And so you do get to have a very thick skin as a reporter or editor. You expect that you can't get everything 100% right all the time. You do try, but you have limited information sometimes, and so a correction is actually often welcomed if it's, like Mike said, not about the nuance so much, but about a factual error. So and that's something I think librarians could play a great role in having that relationship with your local press, that you read your paper every day and you watch the news, and you're active on social media, and you can help them with errors that can come up when you are processing this much information as fast as these guys are doing it. It's bound to happen. It's just the nature of the game. So that was a great question. Thanks, Beth. Any other questions? And Mallory she thanks you very much for the suggestion of doing a follow-up phone call for the press releases that she's issuing. So that's a very
Yeah,
good
the
suggestion.
Missoula Public Library does that. They likewise send out a list once a week of all their events. But if there's something that they particularly want to highlight, then they get in touch personally, either with a separate email or a phone call about that event. And they're pretty savvy now about knowing what we like. We've worked with them for a long time, so yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Talk about savviness. As you get to know the newspaper folks and the TV press in your community, you will be getting better at understanding what it is they might like to see or hear. And sometimes it may seem like it's not a big news story to you, but you'll say, oh, that's right, they told me they really love it when we have a bunch of kids in the library, and they love it when we have a person from our community that's doing something in the library that's just a little bit unusual. So get to know your news folks. And one more comment here, the weekly events list goes out 3 weeks in advance. How often how far in advance do you get that weekly events list, or would like that?
Boy, I'd say 2.
I think that's probably a pretty good timing. I mean, I am not that involved in the overall planning of the station, so I may not be the best person to answer that. But yeah, I think that I don't think for TV, I don't think 3 weeks is too early. I think 2 weeks is probably fine. I would send it out at least 2 weeks in advance if I'm sending it to a television station.
And we've got a question from Great Falls. I encounter younger, specifically TV folks, who don't read my press releases. I can see who opens the emails, but they do follow our library on social media and contact us for stories. Should I start just messaging them via social media? Is this how sort of the new normal with the fresh out of college crowd? So I invited two seasoned professionals here. So tell us what you think of your younger colleagues and how best to communicate with them. It's
Well,
a great question.
yeah, that is a good question about now. So we're talking about TV reporters, and it's true. A lot of the TV reporters in Montana are very young reporters, just out of college. These are small market stations, and that's a lot of the people who we hire for our first jobs. And when you say that they're not reading any press releases, you mean that they're not even looking at their emails. Well, that kind of surprises me a little bit because when I'm communicating with a lot of people, we do it via email as opposed to voicemail. But I think that I have found that a lot of people who are younger very much prefer being text messaged and communicating in that way. That even people who are older, the political people I deal with, text messaging is becoming the probably the quickest way to get a response from them. And so, I mean, if you can get their cell phone numbers, that might be a good thing to do to just go follow up an email with a text message saying, I sent this, don't know if you're interested, but I just popped this off to you. Um, that might be a good way to go. And as far as social media, um, I don't really have enough knowledge. I mean, I use social media, but I don't really use it as much as content that much. Sometimes I communicate with people via Facebook messaging and even sometimes via Twitter, but usually that is with my sources, not really with. Um, there's not that much above board interaction I have on social media. Like I said, I think email and text is probably the way that I would go.
Yeah, and I think it's really good you raised this issue. I've got social media on my little post-it note that I did in preparation for today. Um, a lot of people are using it to communicate now in terms of their events. I'm going to use law enforcement. It used to be, when some big crime was happening, you'd call the sheriff's office and then the public information person would call you back. Now you go to Facebook, to the sheriff's Facebook feed and their Twitter feed, and they post updates there. And it's taken me a long time to break that phone call habit and to realize just to go there. If you're posting events on Facebook that you think are of particular interest, as Mike said, that might be a good thing because I can't, believe it or not, I actually don't spend all day on Facebook, even though some people would say I do. I'm not following everyone's feeds, but if you've got something interesting up there, then ping me either via email, maybe a text. Text, I think we use more for interviews than, not interviews, but kind of to set up interviews sometimes. And the issue of people not opening emails, I frequently don't open them, but I see them. They're flowing by. I can kind of tell from the subject field and the first couple lines that I see whether it's something I want to squirrel away. And even if I haven't opened it, I've frequently seen it. But again, if it's important, don't count on that. Definitely follow up with a phone call or a separate email.
So there's a tip right there. Make sure that your subject in the email is clearly indicating what's in there. So because the news person may not have time to read through everything, but if it's something coming up very soon, maybe put the date of the event and a very brief
or
description.
just send a separate one about that event.
Yeah.
pull
Yeah.
that one out of the events listing and say, hey, this might be something you want to come to.
And this does come back to just getting to know your local media as well. And it is hard, I think, because we do have a lot of turnover, especially in the TV media and in Montana, because as Mike pointed out, we are a small market. This is where the communication majors come to get their careers started, and there is a lot of turnover. But that's still it there aren't that many people to get to know, and it is important that the spokesperson in your library takes the time, to drop in and shake a hand and put a face to a name and say hello, but to do that early in the day. And I'll just point out, there's a reason we're having this webinar at 9. Both Mike and Gwen said that's the best chance that we'll actually be able to come to the webinar. So think about it as something that you do first thing in the day. And that's a great question, Katie. Actually, I don't think it is Katie. Her name is on the audience list. But anyway, from Great Falls, the great question from Great Falls about these new kinds of communication. So make sure that you have a social media events that you're posting them there. That might be one way to catch folks, and see if you can't get to know someone and get their cell phone number so you can text them a little something. I just sent you an email on this and it's coming up in a week. Just want to make sure you see it. That would be fine. Any other questions? Any other bits of pearls of wisdom from our panel?
Well, thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it when people, kind of know how to approach us. Just demystify the process. Someone once told me that people are intimidated dealing with the press, which sort of shocked me because I don't ever feel intimidating. So we're not. So be in touch, please.
Yeah, and one other thought I had about the question earlier about having candidate forums. I think having those events at the library or sponsored by the library or in somewhere in concert with the library, I think that's a great idea to do that. And if you're in doubt about how to do it, or I would suggest calling the local paper and they have someone who's covering politics to actually maybe enlist their assistance and see what they think about what they want to know, what they'd like to see from these candidate forums. Because like I said, I've seen a lot of candidate forums over the years that suffer from a poor format or a poor organization. The people are there, but it doesn't really generate newsworthy or things that are really good for the public to know. So I think it's often good to kind of to see if they want to be involved at all and help you with it.
That's a great suggestion, and another way to build that relationship is coming up on this is obviously a pretty political year ahead of us, that you can reach out to the local news folks and say, so here's some things we're thinking about doing at our library. What are your suggestions? And is there anything that you'd like, maybe you could collaborate on? Building a collaboration, this is the time to do it. And like I said, libraries and news organizations have so much in common, that beyond the fact that we love you guys as authors, but just the fact that we're both promoting information access in our community is such common ground that we should all get to know each other and work together more.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your very busy days to meet with us today, and thanks all of you who attended. This is actually a pretty great attendance for a Wednesday morning webinar. And just one comment from Mallory. My predecessors left me a great publicity checklist if anyone wants a copy. Mallory, if you could kindly send that to me, I will post it and with the video, because I think that would be a very nice thing to share. Great. And she said it has, they have a great relationship with the radio station, the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the papers. And she also said it was great information. So thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day. And you two on my panel, thank you for all that you do in our state to get the word out.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Good. Thanks a lot. Bye.
See ya.